Hey everybody, this is Sean. I'm an American teacher in Jinjiang in Fujian province, and I am coming to you during the midst of the lockdown during the coronavirus outbreak epidemic. I got a few things I'd like to talk to today. Today is February 15th. It's about 20 after 3 here in the afternoon in Fujian. The weather has been awful these last 3 days. There's been about 3 days of just overcast and kind of murky, gloomy, misty rain, with the air quality index being, unhealthy. Primarily today, it's actually a little bit clearer today, and it's in the moderate range, but it's everything is like a wet sock, everything. And if you look at all of your buildings are kind of tiled, and all those tiles have a kind of a moisture to them, and everything is very sort of damp and a little bit warm. You would think it's a perfect petri dish, so it's not very, weather isn't really cooperating here. Another thing is that, like, in these conditions, if you live in China, there's no clothes dryers for the most part. They're few and far between. So, like, drying clothes has become a nightmare, and everything becomes a little bit musty, and it's just not the ideal conditions for trying to keep to be fighting sort of a cold or anything like that. I have basically stayed in my apartment for most of the time. Today I did go out for a walk. I was up near the mountain. I like to hike. I'm in a rural part of China. You'll hear a lot of YouTubers who don't even live in China, who aren't even in China. They just kind of packed up and ran. They'll be talking about the poor and what it's like for them, and so on and so forth. I'm really kind of out there in the middle. I'm in the boondocks, and I'm in a little village outside of town. All I can say is they closed down the mountain, which kind of sucks. They closed that off. I did sense a bit of a nervousness in one of the ladies I buy water from. There's a little bit of nervousness there, and I buy water from her, and I was kind of hesitant on, usually it's the same price. I was kind of hesitant putting in this time just because I kind of felt like maybe I should give her a little more money, because she's probably getting hit. She's probably getting hit by the lack of customers at this point. I don't know. But that was my first sign of maybe the community having she seemed a little bit worried. She was surprised to see me, that was for sure. Surprised to see me. And what else? The buses still aren't running. Like all the conveniences in China that you've heard, everybody that kind of profited from those conveniences, they're all kind of, like, and I said this in my other videos, like the people who buy their way out of this, buy their way out of this. A lot of people, but majority of people aren't going to be able to buy their way out of this, in terms of travel. So they're, like, a lot of the conveniences they've been touting here, they're just kind of all gone right now. Things like Taobao and Didi, and a lot of that is just kind of off the grid for now. But surprisingly enough, I did receive I finally got my Taobao things that have been sitting there. This boonie hat, and I got some soap, that I ordered about 4 weeks ago, and it kind of got here just about. It was sitting in a warehouse down the road for about 2 weeks, but they finally delivered it today. So for now, I have most items that I've ordered on Taobao. I have one more item out there just sitting in limbo, and I have one refund also sitting in limbo. I had bought an item and I had sent it back to them during this sort of disruption and this crisis, and I have not. I don't know if I see that money. From what I'm getting back, is they said they sent it to a different address, and they changed their address during I sent it back to them, and then they said they changed their address because of the time limit, and I don't know. It's become quite frustrating dealing with that one sort of one person there, and it's not even for a lot of money. So, but for the most part, I've never really had any problems with it with the retailers on Taobao. Usually, they're pretty pretty good about giving you refunds and pretty honest and forthright about it. First time I kind of, and who knows, there might be something that I'm unaware of. So yeah, I just kind of proceed, take it day by day. What else is going on? I did a video the other day of a song that I wrote called "Only Other Brave." I think it's a pretty good version of it. Check that out if you would, please. It's based on a Kirk Douglas movie. I grew up in a city not far from where Kirk Douglas was born, and I always kind of liked Kirk Douglas films, and he was as tough as where he came from, in my opinion. So I wrote that song. I think it's probably one of my better songs. It's definitely got a lot of potential. But check that video out. I was going to put it in here, but I'm having all kinds of trouble with my internet. This is one thing that's kind of arose. Not that it hasn't been problematic my entire. In some places it's been really problematic. Some others not so much, but here it's been pretty problematic. My ability to access the internet and my VPNs and somewhat I feel like the YouTubers here, a lot of them are sponsored by VPNs, and they just, that's just another competitive angle that's I feel will be exploited, just like our boy, look at our VPN. They're not even in China, so like, they're kind of selling a VPN for people who aren't even in China. Some of them I have, and some of those YouTubers outside who are, are commenters about China and have all the subscribers, which was another just sort of racketeering of sort of, expertise and authority on sort of issues, populism, let's put it that way, about issues. Those people arose in the last 2 years right at the advent of when YouTube switched their policy on subscribers and monetization. Once they did that, they created this sort of, this opportunity for a lot of people just to kind of, fake the numbers for monetization, and that would draw their attention to their channels. And you'll see a lot of them are kind of sponsored by VPN. So I'm kind of skeptical of why certain things happen, But anyway, I'm not affiliated with any of that. So I've had a lot of trouble with my internet here, and it's just immensely frustrating. I mean, if you're trying to load an article and it takes 2 hours, just getting the screen up, trying to connect with your accounts and things like that, it can take all day. Immensely, and it just kind of ruins everything on your computer. It's my poor computer's gone through a lot of harassment and molestation, I feel, here in China. Anyway, my information also. Let's move on. So what am I doing here? Like I said, I'm doing, exercising. I got the Nike app. Kind of like it. Don't really like Nike these days because of Colin Kaepernick. But their training app is doing a good job of kind of keeping me fit. Watching movies. Every once in a while, the internet service here will drop, just like 20, 40 movies. Let me take a look at those movies here. I put them up here. These are the movies I've watched lately, so I'm going to just kind of quick talk through them. 13 Hours I thought was good, pretty good, but that the fellow from The Office, it's just so hard to buy him as a sort of as a seal or special force. It's just so hard to buy him as a Freezer, crap. Frankenhooker. Frankenhooker was fun. Frankenhooker from the 80s was a lot of fun. Sully, good. Father of Invention, okay, but I just can't fucking stand to look at Kevin Spacey anymore. Our Brand is Crisis, okay. Merry Christmas, crap. And what else was crap? What else did I watch that was crap? I watched Merry Christmas, that was big time crap. And Freezer was crap. Yeah, these two films there, those are just crap. I couldn't stand it. And Friday Night Lights, I watched that last night. That was okay. Movies, quick reviews that I've been watching. These are all dropping right now. They dropped the new Charlie's Angels, so I'm kind of watching that. Not too thrilled about it, but it's kind of a good film for girls. You know, if you get a young girl as a daughter or something like that, you'd be like, all right, this is cool for her. So, what else? Articles I'm looking at. Let's take a look at what I'm looking at in terms of this coronavirus. This is kind of a big one that caught my attention, is that there's a California lab here in Ovio that says it has a vaccination that they've gone into testing. Two companies here. This is in Ovio, blah, blah, blah. Let's just take a look at the article real quick. California lab says it's discovered a vaccine in 3 hours. We have an algorithm which we designed. We put the DNA sequence into our algorithm and came up with a vaccine in that short amount of time. Novio's research and development director, Dr. Trevor Smith, told KBUE. China has reported, of course, there was this big boost in numbers I'll talk about in a bit. Novio's vaccine for, as Health have named it, could be ready as early as the summer. Talks a little bit about stock. It's partnering with Beijing Advaccine, a Chinese company, to work on the vaccine. This kind of runs in the face of some of that stuff I was talking about with Gilead. I'll be very curious about that partnership. That's worth sort of looking into. Another U.S. company, the Novavax, is aiming to make a vaccine as little as 3 months, although such dosage. So they're all kind of moving towards testing, but they have something, as does Gilead. Very interesting article. Other things I'm looking at, of course, there's that big spike in numbers because the diagnosis has changed, and you have to really sort of approach this. I kind of correlate it with the arrival of sort of American sort of experts were finally kind of allowed in, and they sort of came to a consensus that if there are inconclusive results, you have to treat them as conclusive results. Concerning an epidemic, therefore, you had that spike in numbers. I don't know what it's like, what it's like going on in Wuhan right now, or that province, Hubei province. So I can't really sort of speak for that. Other articles I thought was interesting. Let's see if I got an article in here. That the United States has reached out to North Korea, certainly a country that's very vulnerable. I think it's kind of appropriate to do that. And hopefully that they'll be grateful for that humanitarianism, regardless of their own attitudes towards humanitarianism. Or issues of human rights. Not necessarily. I don't think they're against humanitarianism so much as they're sort of at odds with issues of human rights and what are standards and how they should apply universally, as opposed to just sort of a sectarian application. And I think that's about it. Is there anything else I want to talk about here? My neighbors are home. They usually show up when I'm. My neighbors have not. Usually come and go when I'm recording these videos. Arlena, can you remember? I was going to kind of talk a little bit about the YouTubers there. I don't know. It's just kind of frustrating sometimes. It's quite different to be in it, you know. Like I said, it's quite different being here, and just the sort of prolonging of inconveniences that you're sort of coping with on a daily basis is just one of those things you have to experience, and the sort of you know, the implications, and the sort of you know, you got to have some trust in your communities that you're in. You have to have some sort of those kinds of things, you know. It's easy to kind of sit in the United States and just kind of flip through articles and say, I know, I can tell you what's going on. You know, when you're in this situation and you don't know what's going to happen, certainly those kinds of voices are the ones that people are going to try and sort of listen to or look for reassurances from. And you know, it's always been my sort of position that these kinds of platforms are, you know, geared towards exploiting that sort of dynamic. Anyway, that's all for today. I'm going to sign off. We'll talk to you in another 2 days. This is Sean Sardo. This is EXPAT News. Those are my thoughts for today, and I'm going to ease on out of here.